Chapter 3 Ceremony Night. In Setheth's dream, he was in complete darkness. There was the sound of latches fastening and hammers hammering nails into the latches. He was laying on his back and he didn't seem to be in his own body. He was larger now. He could feel more powerful. He felt like he could bust out of wherever he was by sheer strength alone. But his hands were against his sides, and he couldn't move them against the tight walls around him. Trapped in the coffin again. Seth almost knew he was dreaming, but he didn't motion to wake up. In fact, he plunged his mind deeper into it, looking for new sounds, new clues, some connection to the mind he was visiting. After the hammering stopped, he felt his coffin lift off the ground. He swayed back and forth for a few moments, then his stomach lurched as he was dropped. He expected to crash into the dirt, but it didn't come. Instead, he heard a splash, and he felt his coffin dip beneath the water. He heard the sound get muffled, then as he breached the surface again, he heard waves against his walls, just inches away from his restricted body. He woke up. Setheth felt like there was a storm inside of him. In some ways, he felt all day like the dream had made him feel. Trapped. Trapped within his family's pyramid walls again. Stuck tending bar for strangers, while his sister, like the waves outside of his coffin, was getting married just a stone's throw away. Ilian was upset as well, but he was making the best of it. Lord Mesmer's voice had been rattling around in his mind all day, and Seth would hear him mumble, "There's that madness again. Fucking ass." Setheth would look across at him sympathetically. It was good to know his dad was still a miserable old bag. That made what Setheth wanted to do to him easier. Seth had a gift for his mother, all right. The plant he'd found on his midnight stroll had certain properties that his mother had taught him about when he was younger. Nightshade was a beautiful flower, but its buds were known to be fatal if consumed. Seth's plan was to introduce the nightshade buds in powder form to his father's glass of wine, ultimately freeing his mother from his evil grasp, and his sister from what he was convinced was an arranged marriage. As the hours ticked through the day, Seth was keeping the nightshade powder in a glass vial tied to a rope around his neck. They had the bar set up long before the ceremony was to take place. The ceremony was to take place inside of the pyramid, and no commoners like Seth or Ilian were allowed to be in there. Their place was outside of the waiting with the horses and the dogs and the other vendors who were preparing for the reception. "I'm going for a walk," Seth announced. He was restless, and he wanted to catch a glimpse of his mother or his sister. He made his way through the tents and merchants setting up their wares towards the main pyramid. The crowd was steady, with the people in suits and dresses scuttling with their briefcases. Seth walked right into the front doors, but he knew he wouldn't be able to get onto the elevator without a keycard. Just as Setheth slowed his gait and looked around for someone walking to the elevator, he spotted a man not too much older than him, wearing a casual robe. Something in the man's expression was off. He looked triumphant, like he was about to begin to cackle. Intrigued, Seth followed him. The man went to the glass elevator and Seth followed him in. They made eye contact. Suddenly, the eagle's eyes widened, and he stopped breathing. He stared into Setheth's eyes intensely, making Seth very uncomfortable. Setheth felt strange too, as if this man was reading his mind. But there was something else, familiarity like from his dreams. Did he know this person? Did this person know him? The elevator dinged and the door slid open and neither of them moved. "Wait," the eagle began to say. Setheth had already taken off in a sprint down the hallway. He didn't know why. Something about that man awakened an alien feeling buried deep inside of him, and he didn't know what to do with the feeling. So he ran down the long, cavernous hallway. He didn't recognize this floor, and he didn't wonder where he was. He just wanted to put distance between himself and the elevator. Seteth listened for echoing footsteps behind him, but could only hear his own. Still, he went to the first door and found a vent. He frantically unscrewed it, swung it open, and crawled in. Suddenly, he was a kid again, crawling through the vents, spying on his dad, playing make-believe that the Bastetts were chasing him. But this time it was all too real. He crawled until he recognized the passageways, and still then he kept crawling to a place he remembered that used to be his little fort. Then he stopped and felt his heart beating. Seteth didn't feel afraid of the man in the elevator. He felt afraid that he'd recognized him. He'd been hoping his whole life that his dreams meant nothing. He hated the recurring dreams about being trapped in coffins and floated down the river. But he could feel now in the pit of his stomach that the dreams were connected to the man he'd just seen briefly. He didn't understand what was happening to him. He knew something was changing. He fingered the little vial of poison around his neck. He couldn't let this distract him from the plan. "Just you wait, Father. Tonight you'll never hurt anyone again." He said it quietly to himself, but not so quiet that the transmitter barely a few feet away from him had missed it. It heard him perfectly clear, and so did Hephaestus. Suspicion. After night fell, Jack Winehouse was miles away from the gods, patrolling near the Great Pyramid. He was sipping a coffee and reviewing his notes. Across the sea of sand, the Bastet was wandering. Jack watched it with squinted eyes. He remembered finding the broken child in its mouth years ago. He had never looked at the machines again the same way. He was suspicious of the New Dynasty Order. They usurped his police command, and he questioned their actual motives. If the Bastetts could attack and mangle a child, who's to say they couldn't turn down any civilians someday? Then, as if his thoughts had triggered it, the Bastetts' eyes turned red. Through the night, miles away, Jack could see the beams of laser light beam across the desert. There was a cloud of sand as the creature's body became rigid, and it turned completely around away from the pyramid. It broke into a dead sprint. Majestic, like the creature of its likeness, the feline machine drove its forelegs into the ground, then up again to propel itself down the river away from Jack. Winehouse stood up and accidentally spilled his coffee. There was nobody in sight, so why did the machine activate so suddenly? It was barreling at a frightening speed down the Nile towards the towns and the brewery. From Jack's understanding, this was outside of the Bastetts' jurisdiction. But, again, did the monsters even follow these rules? He remembered the slim, ancient Hephaestus referring to the machines as her pets. What was this lady up to? Jack left his coffee and ran to the station. He needed to follow the machine and find out what was going on. For years, he'd been concerned about the Bastetts and the New Dynasty Order. He was always afraid that something was going to happen, but he didn't have enough information to understand what motivates them. For all he could sum up, the NDO was looking for reincarnated gods. Was that even possible? Jack threw his keys into his sand cruiser and turned it on. The engine hummed and he felt the control panel lift up off the ground. The cruiser sat too, but he was alone tonight, and he didn't particularly want anyone with him. If he followed the Bastet tonight, he could too become its enemy. He didn't think that way. He wanted answers, and he had seen firsthand the damage that the machine cats could cause. He needed to pursue and protect, but his mouth tasted like iron and his hands felt cold. Something was going to happen tonight. A meeting. Opportunity came after the ceremony when drinks were flowing and people were dancing. They had a rock band playing on a grand stage on the far side of the brewery estate grounds. They were really good. Lord Mesmere had hired many bartenders from all around the area, and each was set up in their own location, simply flinging out spirits as fast as the guests could consume. The speeches had been spoken, and the married couple had had their first dance. The air was thick with sweaty bodies everywhere, dancing and shouting. The sky itself was upset, and this happened with Setheth's mood. He had been watching his sister, who looked beautiful in her wedding gown, dance with the man who he'd met briefly earlier that day in the elevator. He was very suspicious of this man, especially after discovering he was the groom. But Seth's mind was more on the poison vial around his neck and the proximity of his father, who still showed no signs of recognizing him. From across the grounds, Seth could see Gabriel Mesmer in his long cloak with his scepter coming towards the bar. "Look at this," Ilian said. "After talking all that shit, he's still coming to drink my wine." Seth had already dumped the poison into an open bottle of the wine Lord Mesmer had selected to be poured last, the one he'd gulped down in the chamber that Ilian said had to be worth more gold instead of silver. That was the one Gabriel asked for. Seth had poured it and handed it off to Ilian, who gave it to Gabriel. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Seth's body clenched up, and even though it was a clear day, there came a sudden bellow of thunder from over the dunes. That was strange enough for some of the guests to look up towards the sky. Setheth was unfazed. His eyes were fixated on his father, who was about to sip the nightshade. As chaos would have it, the eagle appeared out of the crowd. Just as suddenly as he came into the view, he did a little dance move, tripped, and fell into Lord Mesmer, causing the poisoned wine glass to fall out of his hand and shatter on the dance floor. Seth's jaw dropped. "You fucking asshole." Thunder crashed again. This time a flash of lightning lit up the sky, briefly showing the dancers in a strobe-like light, as if time had stopped for one moment. The eagle laughed and apologized. He motioned to the bar as he would get him another drink. He walked right up to Setheth. "You don't actually want to kill your father," he said so only the young god could hear. Seth's eyes widened again, and his heart pounded because he'd been caught. "But how? I don't know what you're—" The eagle shook his head. "We need to talk." He turned and received a clean glass of wine from Ilian, passed it off to Lord Mesmer, and turned back to Seth. Setheth excused himself and followed the eagle. Cleopatra was in the crowd dancing with her girlfriends. She hadn't noticed her brother yet. The eagle led them to the elevator, and they rode up several floors. "My name is Horus. I am called the Eagle," he said. "Setheth," Seth said cautiously. The eagle looked at him very closely. "How did you know?" Seth dared to ask. The elevator door rang, and the eagle led them outside to an exposed terrace where they could see over the dance floor. The band was playing an upbeat tune, but they were quiet enough to talk now. The eagle pointed to his right eye. "My eye can see truth." Seth laughed. "Bullshit. Who are you?" The eagle shook his head. "I'm not lying, and I'm a god. You are too." Setheth blinked at him. "Come again?" The eagle smiled and pushed one revolver like a gunslinger. He fired point blank towards Seth's heart. Eyes wide, Setheth's ears rang with a bang, and he saw a flurry of feathers and redness explode out in front of him. Through the nightly shadows, a vulture had dove in front of the bullet. The enormous bird sputtered and fell to the ground between the god's feet, dead. Seth was outraged. His natural reaction was to crouch and cover his head. "What the fuck, man?" he yelled. The eagle was laughing. "That's chaos." "That's your thing, by the way. You are the god of chaos." Seth thrusted upwards with an uppercut. The eagle was much too fast. He sidestepped and was behind him in an instant. His gun was back in his side holster, and he had Seth in a headlock. "Let go of me!" Seth screamed. The eagle relinquished his grip, and Seth turned around shaking. Seth pulled his arm back and swung at him clumsily. The eagle blocked it and kicked him in the knee, almost gently, just enough to subdue him again. Seth's knee buckled, and he was off balance. The eagle stood quietly, pitying him. "You were born here, and you grew up in the crypt," he said. "You don't know anything about me." Setheth was panting, trying to catch his breath. "Gabriel Mesmer is your dad. You don't really want to kill him. Stop it." Cleopatra Mesmer is your sister. She would be heartbroken if she knew. He's terrible to her, Seth said. It's her wedding day, the eagle retorted. Setheth paused, breathing heavily. The eagle smiled at him. Don't hurt yourself congratulating me too fast or anything. Setheth's eyes narrowed. Both gods looked down at the fallen vulture, lying in a pile of feathers, some of its insides on its outside. The Sphinx isn't looking for criminals. We are not criminals. We are reincarnated gods, the eagle said. The band was in between songs. That's heresy, Seth said. The eagle grinned. You don't actually give a rat's ass about heresy. Why do you keep talking like you know me? Because that's my god thing. I can tell what's true and what isn't. I think it's this eye. He pointed to his right eye. Do you have dreams from your past lives? The eagle asked. Seth blinked up at him. I know you have, the eagle said. I know you have dreams about being buried alive. You might have me to thank for that. What are you talking about? It's part of our thing. We always meet and we always fight. We're like brothers. I think you're a crazy person. The eagle shrugged. I might be. But I'm right about this one thing. You are the reincarnated god Setheth of chaos, among other things. And you are being hunted. The Bastetts will not stop until they capture you, and the new dynasty order wants to imprison you. The sky was getting upset again. Thunder crashed, and below the terrace, servants were rushing to put up the big tarps. There had not been rain in the forecast, but the lightning and the thunder seemed to represent a different attitude. Look at this storm. That's you, man. Your mood summons storms. Setheth guffawed. It's just a coincidence. Call it what you want. I bet coincidences happen to you every day. The eagle stopped smiling suddenly, and his lower lip started to drop. He was looking at something behind Setheth. Seth spun around and saw it, the red light. He knew it was immediately, as the fear of it had been ingrained into him. Oh, whoa. I thought they were coming for me. The eagle now was laughing again. He did act like and seem like a crazy person. Seth squinted through the red light and could see the Bastet sprinting through the desert. And it still miles away, but it was coming straight for them. Seth, they're coming for you, man, the eagle said. He sounded excited. And more on the way. Seth turned slowly and scanned the horizon. There were 3 red lights in the distance, all getting steadily closer. The NDO has a bug in the vents, the eagle said. It heard you plotting to kill your dad. Seth's eyes widened. Now that was something this guy couldn't have known. No way. I count 3, and we have 5, maybe 10 minutes before they're on top of us, the eagle verified. They're synchronizing their attack because they know I can kill one of them at a time. You've killed a Bastet? Seth asked. The eagle smiled in his eyes while he shrugged. Yep. The idea gave Seth a good feeling. He too wanted to kill the machines. He hoped this stranger was telling the truth. But the Bastetts can't come into private grounds, Seth said. Do you really believe that? The eagle asked. Seth paused. There was a rhetorical question. We need to go, man. Come with me. The eagle ran back to the elevator and pressed a button for the first floor. We won't be able to outrun them, Seth said, his mind whirling for a way out. He was thinking back to his narrow escape several days ago in the cavern. We need to get Cleo to safety before we do anything, the eagle said. They reached the ground floor, and the doors opened. Let's get her, and bring her to the crypt. There's a way out the Bastetts won't be able to find, Seth said. They ran together out into the night, and then through the crowd of dancers. The band was playing again, a hard rock song. It was a shame the party was about to meet an abrupt mood change. The eagle spotted Cleopatra Mesmer first. She looked at him joyfully until she read his expression and her face suddenly fell. The eagle pushed through the girlfriends and grabbed her hand. "We need to fly, my love. I'll explain on the way," he said. Then she saw Seteth, and her big eyes widened even further. Seth was worried, too, about the approaching machines, but he couldn't help smile at her. "Hey, sis," he said. She threw her arms around him. All right, you two can catch up later," the eagle screamed over the loud music. And, almost on cue, they could suddenly see the red light. It was coming from above them. Cleopatra saw it first, and she screamed. The gods followed her gaze. There was a Bastet, about 100 yards away from them, clinging to the side of the main pyramid, a couple stories up. Its head was swiveling back and forth, scanning the crowd. The enormous claws were leaving deep scratches in the bulletproof glass. "Got any other ideas?" the eagle asked Seth. "Yeah, this way." He took a step back and dove into the crowd. "Stay close behind me," he yelled at the two traveling. They were holding hands. The wedding party and the guests were paralyzed, staring up at the Bastet that was now climbing along the surface of the pyramid. It let out a black gust of smoke from its mouth. The gears were turning and grinding. Seth led the way through the petrified crowd and into one of the brewery buildings. He expected the eagle, or Cleo, to have a key to the next door. This was a secret entrance into the crypt. He was right. The eagle got out his key first and granted them access. They slammed the doorway behind them and began to descend the dark, narrow stairway into Seteth's least favorite place in the world. A joint decision. Cleopatra was in a state of awe. She'd always known there was something special about her now husband, the eagle. She hadn't expected something of this magnitude, but to her it only made sense. The way the eagle had always reminded her of heroes from her childhood stories. And now her brother, who had been alive and safe this whole time, had blasted back into her life with a wave of chaos that could only mean divine intervention of some sort. She was watching him now intently, as if he was someone she'd known this whole time, and she realized how much she'd been missing him. Meanwhile, Seteth and the eagle were smoking a joint low in the crypt, which they'd lit off a butane torch fastened to a cold limestone wall. Whoever maintained said torches was a mystery, and even Seteth had never seen anyone down there rifling with them. He'd actually never seen anyone down there besides his mother and Cleo herself. It had always been a creepy place, and it was especially creepy now, after all these years. It did not help that directly above them, a monstrous robotic cat was pawing at the entrance, trying to shove its way back in. Seteth was listening to the eagle, and he was coming around. It did sound crazy to him that he was a god, but he had no other way of explaining his own dreams, and further yet, how the eagle knew he'd been having them. Seteth always felt different. He'd always been an outcast, but in his heart, he felt lonely too, even with his mother and sister. He could imagine a universe where he'd been reincarnated. He felt a deep connection with something in his past, and maybe that was it. Maybe he was feeling a connection to his past lives. "Are there others like us?" Seteth asked. He passed a joint to the eagle. The eagle took a big drag, and his eyes smiled. "Yes, there are." He coughed. Cleopatra sat down next to the eagle and took his hand. "The problem is," the eagle said, "that most of the others have already been captured. But that's what the Sphinx is for, you know?" Seteth blinked at him, confused. Oh yeah, the eagle continued. The Sphinx isn't supposed to find unhealthy babies or criminal babies. That's just what they say. It's actually able to detect reincarnated gods. And when it finds them, the new dynasty order puts them into a prison. That's terrible, Cleo said. The eagle nodded. It's not great. But how come I'm not in prison right now then? Setheth asked. I don't know. But I'm sure that's why your parents kept you hidden, the eagle confirmed. So what do we do now, if you're being hunted? Cleopatra asked. The eagle took another big drag and passed the joint to her. He stood up and looked across at Setheth. Well, we have a couple options, but one of them I like the most. They looked up at him. I say we take the fight to the prison. Let's bust out the other gods. Setheth grinned. That was just the kind of crazy idea he liked. You want to fight the NDO? Cleopatra sounded amazed, in awe of the eagle's confidence. The eagle shrugged. They want to fight us. We don't have a choice, or we're going to end up in jail with them. Take a look at this, the eagle said, reaching into his jacket and withdrawing a folded piece of papyrus. I've been doing my research. He unfolded the paper and showed them a hand-drawn, albeit detailed, blueprint of the Great Pyramid. You brought this with you to our wedding? Cleo frowned. I'm glad I did, the eagle said. I knew there would be retaliation after I killed one of the Bastets. And there was. Does it get tiring knowing everything? Cleopatra joked. I don't know everything. I know more than everyone else, though, the eagle said. I can tell your superpowers include super ego, Setheth said. Is that so different from you? An hour ago you got so mad you summoned a thunderstorm. What were you mad about, Seth? Cleo asked. The siblings exchanged glances, and seeing their uneasiness about being back in each other's lives, the eagle decided to keep Setheth's intentions to kill his father a secret from his wife. For now, at least. Just something with my boss, Setheth lied. Cleopatra ruffled Seth's musty hair. You're all grown up with a boss and everything now, huh? She said. I don't know if he's my boss anymore. We're on the lam, right? Seth said. That's right, the eagle said proudly. He put the butt out of the joint against the cold wall. So let's get out of here and find a place to hide. We've got a jailbreak to plan. Cleopatra took a deep breath. You just told me you were a god, and now you're involved with a war against the new dynasty order. Aren't you surprised by how well I'm taking all of this? Not really, the eagle said. He gave her a kiss on the forehead. I know my wife. Tourniquet. Jack Winehouse had screamed for backup into his walkie-talkie. Send everyone. It's a bloodbath. The situation was bad. The Bastets, there were 3 of them by the time he got there, were terrorizing the Mesmere grounds and the wedding guests. Jack had almost crashed his cruiser into the wall as he rushed to dismount. He had his gun out for no reason, as if it would do any good against the enormous beasts. But his adrenaline was racing through his body, and all of his hairs were standing up. The only way he could describe the scenario was chaotic. The first Bastet was scaling the pyramid itself, sending glass flying in all directions across the desert, its sirens and red light taking over all the space around it. The second Bastet was pawing at the ground, frantically digging, with no regard for the humans, scurrying in terror beneath it. And the third Bastet, the worst of them all, was pacing around the entrance to the Mesmere crypt, snapping its jaws at anyone who came near. After the machine cats, Jack saw the crowd, everyone in fancy dress, running for their lives in every direction. They were trampling each other, and several of them were crashing into Jack on their way towards the gate. almost knocking him over. "Help! Somebody help me!" The desperation of the voice cut through the sirens. Captain Winehouse wheeled around and holstered his pistol. Across the dance hall, beneath the tall tree, he could make out a man screaming for help over what looked like the writhing body of an old lady. Jack raced over and assessed. "We need to get her to safety," Emmett shouted as the captain approached. His mother was on her back, terrified, gripping at her heart. "Get back," Jack commanded. She was having a heart attack. Jack dove to the ground and put his hands on the old woman's chest. The thunder cracked again, and Emmett had a craziness in his eyes. Emmett watched the cop perform CPR on his mother. Just behind them, the Bastet on the pyramid screeched menacingly. The entire world was bright red under the light of the three of them. Jack pressed against the woman's chest, and his head swiveled around. There were more injured. He tried and tried, but he was losing the woman. He needed to go. "I need to go," he yelled at Emmett. "Keep doing this," he said, without any time to explain anything further. She was a goner. Jack leapt to his feet and fought through the last leg of the crowd to a clump of people surrounding a teenager. This kid was on the ground as well, a puddle of blood around him. There was a piece of glass in his leg, and the blood was flowing like a horror movie. It looked like it was cut from his femoral artery. Not another fatality. Come on, think! Someone in the crowd had taken off their jacket and wrapped it around the leg of the makeshift tourniquet. It wasn't enough to stop the bleeding, but it slowed it down. This kid could be saved. "Help me carry him to the cruiser," Jack yelled at the man with no jacket. The area was almost empty now as the crowd flowed out in the gates into the desert. The cats were chasing people. They were looking for something. A god. The men carried the wild-eyed teenager to Jack's speeder, and Jack used bungee cords to strap his legs down into the passenger seat. His heart sank for the old woman he could not save. He hated that he couldn't stay and help more people, but he needed to get this kid to the hospital. There was nothing he could do against the Bastets. He pressed the pedal as far down as he could, and he blasted sand all around him as he took off. Purity. Emmett's mother died in his arms. He knew it the instant it happened. But he kept pushing her chest and hoping against hope that it wasn't real. But as the reality sank and tears flooded in his eyes, tears of anger, that lady, the one who had controlled the beasts, she'd said that if he planted the bug, she wouldn't hurt his mother. What the fuck was this? Emmett stood up, his blood boiling. He'd had enough. That was his last thought before he fell into a blind fury. His body raced forward towards the Bastet that was too busy digging to pay attention to him, to his mother who was dead now, on the ground in the rain. Hey, look at me, he roared at the cat. Nothing. He was running full speed again. He leapt into the air and grabbed hold of the creature's hind leg. It twitched, but Emmett was fast. He scrambled up and into the gearwork of the pelvic area of the Bastet. Emmett didn't know the creature's weak spot. He just wanted to inflict as much pain as possible. He didn't know what he was doing. He held on for his life as the cat kept on digging. Can't even pay attention to me now. Well, Emmett was through being overlooked. He grabbed hold of something and that looked important. A little beating heart of a machine piece. He pulled and pulled at it to no avail. Then he had the strangest idea. In his rage, he opened up his mouth and dove his head forward. He put his teeth around the metal and he bit down with all of his strength. Immediately the metal gave away. Emmett couldn't explain why or how, but he tasted the metal in his mouth, and he could feel that he'd ripped it clean away from the other machine parts. He spat the piece out and went back for another one. He was untangling the mechanical spaghetti of the Bastet with his teeth, one wire at a time, one mouthful of steel at a time. He didn't know how he was doing it, but he didn't give a fuck. Emmett tore off chunks of hot steel methodically, seeing nothing but red. His teeth felt strong and powerful. The beast beneath him quivered and shook. He kept it until it stopped quivering and shaking. Emmett had torn his way through the inside of the Bastet, and he rode it down as it fell into the sand, and the electric spark of life left its corpse.